Good morning, everyone. Today is the 8th of August, Tuesday morning, and Mark is continuing to read Arthur Pink's book, The Doctrine of Election. He's in Chapter 5. He's ready for Part 5 of Chapter 5. Again, I want to remind everyone, if you're interested in getting this book, you can go to greatchristianbooks.com and order a copy of this book, The Doctrine of Election by Arthur Pink. Hope you all are having a good day today. And Doctrine of Election, Chapter 5, Part 5. Since in the case of Christ we have both the pattern and example of election, the grand original, it's quite evident that grace is not to be limited or understood only in the divine favor toward creatures that are fallen and are delivered out of ruin and misery. Grace does not necessarily presuppose sin. The object it is shown unto the highest instance of all, but of the grace bestowed upon the man Christ Jesus, conferred upon one who had no sin and was incapable of it. Grace is favor shown to the undeserving. The human nature and the God-man merited not the distinction conferred upon it. Was extended to fallen creatures, it is favor shown to the ill-deserving and hell-deserving. Yet this is not implied in the term itself, which may further be seen in the case of divine grace, being extended to the unfallen angels. Thus was Christ as a pattern of whom God has predestinated his people to be conformed. Selection of them to everlasting glory was under his view of them as unfallen and not as corrupt creatures. God, having thus absolutely chosen the Son of Man, and therewith endowed him with such royalty as to be the sovereign end of all whom he should create or elect to glory, it therefore follows that those who were chosen of us men were intended by the very ordination of God, and choice to be for Christ's glory as the end of our election, as well as for God's own glory. We were not absolutely ordained, as Christ in his unique predestination was in the first design of it. But from the first of ours, the intention of God concerning us was that we should be Christ and have our glory from him who is the Lord of glory, 1 Corinthians 2:8. Here, as everywhere, Christ has the preeminence. The person of Christ, God-man, was predestinated for the dignity of himself, but we for the glory of God, and of Christ, though God and the Father first alone designed who the favored one should be, yet that there should be an election not any was for Christ's sake as well as his own. Our election God has the Son in view as God-man, and his design of him is our end. He chose us for his sake, that we might be his fellows or companions, Psalms 45:7. That as he was God's delight, Isaiah 42:1. So we might be his delight, Proverbs 8:31. Thus we were given to Christ first, not as sinners to be saved by him, but as sinless members through a sinless head. The sovereign gift to his person for his honor and pleasure, and to be partakers of the natural glory with him and from him. And the glory which thou gavest me as God, hyphen man, I am given them as concurring with thy election of them. Thy giving them to me to be mine, thou hast loved them as thou hast loved me, i.e., with the everlasting love and election. Yea, thou gavest them to me, for my glory is their end, for which chiefly thou lovest me. John 17:22-23. What immediately follows in John 17, this Father, I will that they also, whom thou hast given me, be with me where I am. They may behold my glory which thou hast given me, for thou lovest me before the foundation of the world, in verse 24. Christ was loved in his election from everlasting, and of God's love for him whose people were given to him, and what intent, even to behold, admire, and adore him, his person and glory, as being the very thing they were ordained for, more than for their own glory, for their glory arises from this beholding him, 2 Corinthians 3:18. What is this glory which Christ has ordained us to His glory as the first has to decree Him with the height of glory in heaven. For it is we are ordained to behold it and observe how He here, John 17:24, reveals the main motive to God in this: for thou lovest me, Christ being chosen first in the attention of God. The members were chosen and given to Him so that they should redound to His glory. We being chosen for Christ's glory is our end, for His sake as well as this the glory of God's grace toward us. God that ordained a double relation to Christ and His true glory. Additional to that aspect, glory of His first relationship, first relation at the head, where we were given to Him as members of His body and of His spouse and our husband to be her head. Second, the relation of the Savior and Redeemer, which is in addition to His headship in both of these, for the glory of Christ and also demonstration of God's grace toward us. These two relations are quite distinct and must not be confounded for the head husband with the head of the wife, even Christ the head of the church, even the Savior of the body. Ephesians 5:23, each of those offices are appointed Him by the good pleasure of God's will. The same twofold relations of Christ to His people is set forth again in Colossians 1:18-20. This double official honor conferred upon Him is further above the absolute growth of the personhood of God-man. Now, a twofold relationship, the relation of Christ to His people, have answeredly a double and distinct aspect consideration upon us and of us in our relationship by God, which is not absolute as Christ, but is relative under His two personal offices. The first concerns our persons without consideration of our fallen Adam, whereby we were contemplated in the pure love of creation, to be created. In that consideration, God ordained us under the ultimate glory and the relation to Christ as the head, whether as members of His body or as His bride, or rather both as He is the head of the church, either or both persons were fully capable before or without any consideration of our fall. Second of our persons viewed as fallen, as corrupt and sinful, and therefore is obviously saved and redeemed. For all of them, under our relation to Him as the Savior. Each of these relations was for the glory of God's grace. The person is designed to advance us considerably purely as creatures to higher glory by His Christ, than was attainable by the law of creation, to ordain us unto His glorious pure grace, no less so than to redeem us from sin and misery when fallen, for it is wholly independent of works or merit. Even as Christ's election, which is the pattern of ours, was apart from consideration of works of any kind, as He declared, my goodness extended not to be, Psalm 62. Although the life, work, and death, height, and agony of the Son did reflect the eternal luster upon every attribute of God, yet the most blessed and infinitely happy God stood in no need of the obedience and death of His Son, for our sakes, that the work of redemption was undertaken C.H. Spurgeon. All right, thank you, Mark. Well, the good Lord being in the matter, we'll continue this tomorrow. I hope you have a good day today, and the Lord richly bless you.